San Diego, Mark?
Same. In fact, we lost one of our full-time comedy clubs, Madhouse, which was I considered my home club.
Man.
So really nothing is. There's some people doing some backyard shows and things like that. I haven't done any of those yet.
Me neither. They have a club here in Vegas that's open, and I only go to a few clubs because they're either outdoors or really social distancing with really masks, everybody. Yeah. And so I got booked on the Notoriety Club in February, so I'm excited for that because it's a bigger, newer club on Fremont Street.
Oh, good.
So, but there's a whole lot of places to go that I can't get near. I'm at the age where I would catch it and die.
Yeah, well, you don't need that.
No. You guys, welcome to Comic Spot today. I'm so excited because, I don't know, about 7 years ago, I met this man, Mark Christopher Lawrence, over there in the other square. I met him at Ace's Comedy Club in Marietta. Poor guy had me in his improv class. I'm sure he didn't notice. Him and Paul Agata were there. Talk about two of the best in the business. And, so anyway, I kind of sort of met him and I invited him, and I had lousy equipment to do these interviews on. Today, he graciously said he would come back. Comic Spot was started so this Army veteran here could interview legends of comedy. So I get to vet out a real veteran of comedy and show business today. Let me read you this introduction that he sent me, and I quote, Mike Christopher Lawrence's introduction. He's Mark. What is wrong with me? Mark Christopher Lawrence's introduction. Thank you, Mark. He's a recipient of the prestigious San Diego Critics Circle, Craig Noel Award for Outstanding Actor of the Year in Theater. Oh my gosh, you guys. A 40-year veteran of the comedy stage, OMG. A 35-year veteran of television and film. You've seen him in blockbuster films as Terminator 2, Crimson Tide, The Pursuit of Happiness, and Fear of a Black Hat. He's acted on nearly every sitcom on television from the mid-'80s through 2000. He's probably best known for his television role as Big Mike on the NBC hit Chuck. Please welcome actor/comedian Mark Christopher Lawrence. Yay! Woo! Hi, Mark.
Hey.
Am I annoying or what?
Your words, not mine.
So wonderful to have you here for a interview of your life. Talk to me about where you grew up and your early life doing stage and comedy and being funny. Let's hear about that.
Well, I grew up in Compton, California. My mom bought the house there in 1969, and she actually bought it in Linwood. But then that summer, they did a redistricting, and so the borderline for Linwood ran through our backyard. So we were no longer in Linwood. And she bought the house there because the high school was 2 blocks away. My brother was in high school at the time. So needless to say, we ended up getting bused to Dominguez High School, which is sort of where my career began. Ran into a teacher, Mrs. Schilling, who got me involved in speech and debate. And I did my first play with her. She introduced me to a mentor who ultimately became one of 2 people who got me involved in stand-up. And in 1981, I was a junior in high school and got on stage for the first time and loved it. And, did 3 minutes with no act and was funny and continued to do it. And here we are, 40 years later, still at it.
So this Mrs. Schilling, is she still alive?
No, we buried her 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I did keep in touch, and every milestone of my career, I was able to reach out and let her know what I was doing and thank her for putting me on that path, because she became a part of my life at a time when I was sort of on the fence. I grew up in Compton during the height of the rise of the Bloods and Crips, and she came into my life right at the right time to get me involved in something else, and I didn't have time to hang out with the guys. And she was always saying to me, what are you doing today? And I tell her what I was doing. She says, well, do you think that's the best use of your time? We got a tournament coming up on Saturday. Maybe you should be working on speeches. And and that changed my life.
How wonderful is that? So, has she had children that are still involved in your life, offspring that?
No, she had one child and he passed
Oh,
uh, before her.
oh, that must be horrible.
Yeah,
So,
that's a bad one.
yeah, that's horrible. So how is your mom? Your mom's still around?
My mom's good. She'll be 82 in April, and healthy and mostly happy.
Yes. So the very first time you wrote and did any acting and any comedy, how scared were you? Young comics come on here and it encourages them to hear the beginning roots of your stories.
Well, I don't think I had any fear of the stage because of speech and debate. So that part had me sort of prepared to get up in front of people and talk. I wasn't afraid to talk. um, and I didn't know what bombing was, so uh, it never happened.
Wow. How come are you so good on stage? I watched your dry bar special. I've
Mm.
been following what you do, and you sent me this new dry bar special that you have. I was watching it, and you're so patient with your jokes. You're not afraid of the silence. How's that happen?
That is a direct note from Bill Cosby. I was working on Ghost Dad with Bill Cosby, and I was watching my first tape. It was a 7-minute tape from a place called the Long Beach Comedy Club back then. It was down by the Pike, and I'm in my little dressing room watching it, and Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier were walking by, and he stuck his head in. And he asked me, "How long is it?" I said, "It's 7 minutes." He goes, "Rewind it." And so he stepped up onto the steps and rewound it, and he watched the whole 7 minutes. And he says, it seems like you're afraid of the silence. He says, you're not giving the audience a chance to laugh. He says, you're stepping all over jokes. He told me to, uh, after the joke lands, let the laughter subside. And once it starts to subside, don't talk or move before that happens. And so I went from having a 7-minute routine to about a 35-minute routine with one note, because I was doing so many jokes in 7 minutes that and he was right. I just wasn't giving the audience a chance to laugh. And so now, I don't move or talk until I feel that laughter start to subside.
Yes. What do you do when you tell something that you know works, but the audience didn't get it?
You move right on.
Okay.
People ask me all the time about, people have this fear of comedy, and they say, well, I couldn't do it. I'd be afraid to do comedy. But the thing about comedy is, you tell a bad joke, boom, you're right into a new one. If as a singer, you have 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of bad song.
Got it. Yeah. The other day I was doing a show, and I don't know if everybody's mics were turned off on Zoom. It's hard to read a room.
Right.
And, the places that I knew were funny, the predictable punchlines were getting nothing. So I just kept going. And I just thought, well, maybe I've heard comics go, well, that was a punchline, or okay, that works in a nursing home. They tag it and they get laughs because of what they're adding. But
Yeah, for me, I've never sort of resorted to tag a joke that didn't land. For me, it's better to just leave it and move on. And that's me, because some guys, like Scott Wood, for example, he does set up punch, and if a joke doesn't work, he'll get 3 or 4 tags on it that are funnier than the joke itself.
Yes.
So, but that's not the way I work. So
no, there's different philosophies. That's your philosophy and works for you, and what works for him works for him.
yeah, exactly.
Let me
There's
step
no right or
aside.
wrong in it.
No, I hate it. Like we're going through a really rough time in the world, and it's about time we all realize, let's quit judging each other.
Yeah, I think that's a good note for society. Let's quit judging each other.
Yes, yes. What does the CLT on your hat stand for, Mark?
Charlotte.
Charlotte, a team in Charlotte?
No, just the city. I did a movie there a couple months ago, and it was in my gift bag.
Nice.
I was just outside. It was chilly, so I just grabbed the first hat that was near me.
What's it like being a veteran of stage, screen, and comedy? Do you get a lot of people recognizing you all the time?
I think I get recognized almost every day from something. Mostly from Chuck or Fear of a Black Hat, and I put that in the intro because Fear of a Black Hat in the intro because it's not a blockbuster movie. It's a tiny little movie that opened on 10 screens nationwide. But I before Chuck, I was recognized more from that than any other thing in my career. But every day, somebody is staring at me, and being from Compton, immediately I get a little defensive, so I get my hands free just in case there's going to be a ruckus, and usually it's because they recognize me from something, and I'd rather people come up and say something to me than just stare at me, because that the boy from Compton is still in there.
I'm the same way about, like I'm a woman of a certain age, 69. And when people stare at me and say, oh, you look good, or you look good for your age, like I just want, like I don't want to be singled out because I'm older, and I don't want to be looked over, and I don't want to get a compliment attached to my age.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can go ghetto. I tell you, I can go ghetto.
Hilarious.
So talk to me about you getting on stage and your career taking off. Because when I started 7 years ago, you were already a celebrity at Aces. Everybody's like, Mark's coming tonight. Do you know Mark? Have you met Mark?
Well, I think it didn't just take off. I mean, it's been years of me grinding. In fact, I'm still grinding. I get some just flat out offers, for TV and film, but mostly I'm auditioning just like everybody else. The game has changed. Back in the old days, there were people that hung around for years as producers at the major studios, and and they knew what you could do, and they would hire you based on previous relationships. And now it's about your social media and all that, and so you just have to keep trying to reinvent yourself. Now I'm older now. I'm in my 50s, well into my 50s, but I don't look it. If I didn't have my beard with all the gray in it, you couldn't even tell that I was 50. And so I'm in a strange place in my career, in that when I go into a room with people that are in their 50s and 60s, I look too young. And if I'm in there with people in their 30s and 40s, I'm not quite that young. I'm maybe a little aged out. So luckily, people look at me and look at my audition and my body of work and decide whether or not they can make the project work with me at this age. And I've been fortunate enough to continue to work.
What is the most challenging? These are interesting answers. If I don't validate you after every answer, just
No,
know
that's
that
okay.
I totally get what you're saying. What is the most interesting role that you had to prepare for, and why? The role that pushed you.
I don't know. I think I've gotten more gratification from theater than film and television. Um, the August Wilson plays, I've done a couple of those, and I think Boy Willie was probably the most challenging because for two reasons. One, um, he was very clear in what he wants, and that's just acting 101. What do I want? And just with him, just knowing what he wanted wasn't really enough because he had to make this journey that his want was inclusive of his surroundings and the people around him that he loved. So how does he go from just bullying his way through and not just walk over the people that he loved to get what he wants? And so that was, I think, the most challenging. That, and in a play that's 108 pages or so, he spoke the lion's share of the words on 86 of those pages. And just getting that into your head was a bear. It's like it was. I memorized lines all day and all night, and go to bed is the last thing before I went to bed. The first thing when I woke up. At one point, he has a 10-page monologue that's just interrupted by one line, and because he's talking about the same thing over and over again, it was really hard to get it right. And I'm just kind of a stickler for saying the words that the author wrote, especially with August Wilson, because August Wilson, arguably one of the foremost playwrights ever, he won 2 Pulitzer Prizes in 10 plays. He writes with this sort of blues pentameter, whereas Shakespeare writes in iambic pentameter sometimes. His plays had this sort of blues pentameter, and when you weren't hitting it right, you knew it. You could feel that it was off.
Got it. What role in your life on stage or screen or plays have altered your trajectory of your own life? Read something, you studied a character, you had to be that character, and you reassessed your choices and values.
I don't think any. I think what happens when the way I work is, the first thing I do is I separate me from the character, because the character is not me. I mean, there are things about me that I bring to the character if it's appropriate. But the character has its own life, its own set of values, its own trajectory in life, if you will. And, when I have mine, sometimes they align, sometimes they don't. And so I never judge the character based on what my life is. So I look at what the character is and I fit into those shoes.
Got it. Do you have a favorite that you got to do, or is that the wrong question to ask? A favorite character?
I don't think that's the wrong question to ask. I mean, there's lots of characters that I like to play. Like, I love playing Tone Deaf in Fear of a Black Hat. I love playing Big Mike on Chuck. If I had the opportunity to do something again, I think my first choice would be to play Boy Willie again in Piano Lesson, August Wilson's Piano Lesson, because I felt like, although it was critically acclaimed, I felt like there was more that I could have brought to it and gleaned from it.
Wow. Now that's a true professional. I
Yeah,
guess it's art. We're never, we never say, "Oh, I did my job." We're always looking for how we can be better at everything.
Yeah, I think in my careers, when I look at my body of work, and I look at especially theater, there's only been one play, one character that I played that I felt like halfway through the rehearsal process I had this character. I knew who it was. Um, there was nothing else that I could bring to it. Now it's time to set the performance, and that was when I played Gabriel in Fences here in San Diego at Signet Theater. And about halfway through the rehearsal period, it just clicked for me. It's like, and then it just became a thing where every night it just got better and better, because now I'm not searching for it. I'm just refining it.
So would you compare acting and getting the character to similar to comedy and your persona?
Um, I I don't know that I work the same way with comedy as with acting. I think acting there, my training gives me set ways to work and to create a character and to build on a character. And comedy over the years, um, my persona on stage just sort of grew. I never sat down and said, well, this is what he wants, which is what the first thing I do in a play. I read through the play and start circling, things that he wants. In comedy, I think the focus is mainly on how to say the words so that they're funny. Because when I look at my act, a lot of it for me is not funny, and I go, if I was watching somebody do this, would this be funny to me? And sometimes I say no, and uh, but the way I say it makes it funny. They say some people say funny things and some people say things funny, and I think I'm fortunate enough to do both.
Yes. When I was watching your Drive Hour special, we'll go back to that. I noticed effective use of pauses and no fear of the silence,
Thank
and
you,
a
Bill
lot,
Cosby.
mhm, and a lot of like little short act outs, like
Yeah,
you know, it really worked for you.
yeah. I think as I have a good friend who we've been friends since I think probably junior high school. He said to me years ago that I should do more characters in my comedy because I'm good at it. And after he said that to me, then there were times where I'd be doing my act and unconsciously, when I talk about a character or talk about a person, I unconsciously just started letting the person talk as opposed to talking about them. And so now when I even teach comedy, I tell people, look, uh, let the character talk as opposed to you telling me about the character. Let them talk. Like in my act, the cats talk, you know, and I think that's funny.
Yes, absolutely. So, is that one of your favorite act outs, so to speak, when the cats talk?
I think so. I think it's becoming one of my favorites because as that joke developed, that whole joke about, the whole curves bit started with that one joke about the cat talking. And as the curves bit grew, um, I felt like the cat was sort of getting left out of it. So then I have been playing around with different things for the cat to say, and I think I finally found something for him to say that works. You know, and is consistent with what a cat would probably say in this situation.
Yes. There has to be truth throughout when you're on stage. And so,
Yeah, yeah. I think people, the way to engage an audience, I think, is to be able to engage them in a way that they are familiar and happy that it's not them.
I'm going to write that down.
It's like I understand what you're going through, but I'm glad it's not me. You know, I think
And
one of the
that,
things I tell people all the time is like it's like an audience comes, they don't want to think, they just want to laugh. They want to be able to look at you and go, my life is a little jacked up right now, but it's not that.
got it. Yeah. I make fun of myself, because I think it's ridiculous that somebody my age wears prom gowns and stilettos all over Las Vegas. I really do. I'm so sick and tired of being ignored because I'm older. And if you wear jeans and a t-shirt at my age, nobody sees you. You could pull off
Yeah.
a bank robbery. They wouldn't know who you were.
Are you familiar with Monique Marvez?
Who?
Monique Marvez.
No.
You should look her up. Um, Monique uh, is always dressed immaculately and just gracious and gorgeous. And and I think you could learn a lot from taking a look at her.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever been a big fan of self-deprecating humor. Um, I mean, I think it's okay to point out some of our flaws and things like that, but just because we have flaws doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. And so my approach is always trying to be positive.
Yes.
You know, and I think over the years that has changed quite a bit to that.
Yes. When I first started doing self-deprecating, the audience always got quiet and wouldn't laugh. It made them uncomfortable.
Yeah,
But now
yeah,
I've found ways to do it in being a strong older woman, but yet there's self-deprecating coming through it.
yeah, yeah. And even if you flip the script so that it's not self-deprecating, it's more of, here's the thing about me, I love this thing, as opposed to this is the bane of my existence. It's like it becomes a different joke, and uh, easier for the audience to deal with.
Yes, got it. Yeah, that's a work in progress too. So,
Yeah, yeah, and clearly, the more you do it, the better you get at it. The more you're on stage, the better you get at it. I mean, I know people who weren't funny at all when I first started doing comedy, and they are hugely funny now.
yes, I can think of people right from Aces that took off like rockets. You know,
Hmm.
Paul, Agata, you got Taylor Tomlinson came out of there, or came and visited there.
Yeah, Paul was a beast before he got to Aces.
Okay,
Before Aces was open, Paul was already brilliant. It's like Paul is one of those comics that when I watch him work, I I question why I'm doing this
yep,
because he's so good at it.
so good, so relaxed,
Yeah.
so relaxed. Speak to me a little bit about being authentic and being honest and telling the truth versus just making stuff up to be funny. I'm sure you've seen a lot in those.
Well, I think there's room for both. I think um, in my act, pretty much every story that I tell you is steeped in truth. There's something true about every story I tell, and sometimes just telling the story the way it happened is funny enough, and sometimes I have to add to it or embellish it to make it funnier, um, because clearly cats don't talk in English anyway. Um, so I think there's room for both, and I like comics that use their imagination when they're doing comedy. Like what's his name, Christopher Keith Tyler.
Yes.
He he was on a show with me a few weeks ago, and he was in my improv class, and when I watch him, it's like he's so out of the box in terms of imagination, more than anybody I've ever seen. And I think if given the right circumstance, I think he's one of those comics that would just explode onto the world, given the opportunity.
So kind of like a Robin Williams type, where he can make something out of nothing.
Yeah, but I think his brilliance is more in his willingness to bring a truth to a lie. In
Wow.
that he has a character who is a robot, and just just watching him on stage totally commit to the idea of it, and the audience just jumps on the bandwagon with him. They buy it because he's totally committed to it. Um, so to answer that question is yeah, there's room for both. I think you can totally create a world or a being that's not a true world or being, And if you commit to it, the truth is in the committal.
That's beautiful. I've seen people try to do an act out, myself included. I'm not there with act outs. They're kind of my joke, you know, doing impersonations where people are sort of committed to doing it, like myself. I'm not good at them. How can I be totally committed to something I'm not good at yet, you know? But I try to do it and show people I'm making fun of myself doing an impersonation or act out.
Yeah, I think you know, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and I think what you do is you figure out what your strengths are and play to those, and then the weaknesses, you know, work on them and see if it gets to a point where they're equal to your strengths. Sometimes you have to abandon something. You know, years ago I just abandoned doing impersonations because it's like, okay, there's a couple of people that I can do, but they're no longer relevant.
It's so hard because as we get older, the people we're referring to have gone on before us, or they're not relevant anymore. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I liked about watching you on your dry bar special, this is like a TED talk about your dry bar special. But what I liked about the dry bar special is that you weren't acting. There was something so, this is you, Mark Christopher Lawrence, as we would find you walking down the street. It was so authentically Mark. There was, even though you could draw from acting, you didn't.
Yeah, I you know, when I look at it, I think, you know, that there's still that heightened personality factor that I don't walk around with all day, every day. Uh, and I think that's what separates me from my stage persona, is that it's close to me, but when I'm on stage, it's much bigger. Um, like if you saw me do a small room where, let's say, someone's living room and there's 12 or 13 to 20 people in there, then I just talk. And so it's just me talking, and I set myself up to get the jokes in. Which is kind of the way been working on Zoom is I kind of talk and then work the joke in without just performing.
Right.
And so the dry bar, I think the job that I learned years ago as I watched other comedians, if you don't have a character that's a strong character, i.e., Emo Phillips, Judy Tenuta, you know, if it's not a character like that, then the persona that you bring is basically a heightened version of you. You know, like you watch Jerry Seinfeld when he's on stage, it's a heightened version of him because he's not that animated in person, but but when you watch it, it's very close to who he is.
Got it. Well, Rick, you've been so lovely to come back on. Is there anything you want to take over and say to people who are watching about your life, their life, the future of the world, the future of comedy, the future of Broadway? Anything you want to talk about before I ask you where people can follow you?
Well, you know, I would like to say that, you know, just because of, you know, the political climate of America right now, that the way we are sort of wholly separated, um, I think that people will find that they have friends who are on both sides of the fence of issues, and it's okay to be on an opposite side of a fence from somebody that you call your friend, that's your friend. But I don't think that you have any value in losing your friend because they see something different than you. So you know, be kind to one another. You know, try to remember that the person that you're denigrating is a friend, and I think if we keep that in mind, then we can find a way to find some commonality and some grounds for for loving each other. And I think that's what we need, and especially now during this pandemic, where people ask me all the time, what do I miss most because of the pandemic? And I say, well, it's hugs. I miss hugging people. Like after the shows, I shake hands and hug people, and I don't do that right now. And then the other thing would be, don't be so uptight. Jokes is jokes. We sometimes we say things to draw attention to them. Sometimes we say things that we find amusing, and we have become a nation of people that are so uptight about any and everything that we got to just loosen up.
Absolutely. The cancel culture and being politically correct is, in some ways, it makes you wonder if our freedom of speech is being ripped out from under us.
Yeah, and I think that's because people are thin-skinned. It's like, stop being. It's not about you. If I tell a joke about something, it has nothing to do with you. Chances are I don't even know you. I had a lady come up to me after a joke that I did on stage one night, and she personalized it so much. And I said to her, this joke is not about you. I said, I don't know you. And so if something is hitting you in my act that makes you feel a certain kind of way, then maybe it's time to pull out the mirror and look at yourself.
Thank you. Absolutely. You just sent chills up my spine on that one. That's so true.
Yeah, I think we take for granted that every little thing is for us, for our pleasure. That and really we should start, if we spent more time thinking about others and the welfare of others, it would change our world immensely.
That's beautiful. Where would you like people to help you and give you more traction online?
Well, if you go to my website, markchristopherlawrence.com, all of my social media links are on that page. If you look at my dry bar special, that would be fantastic. If you like it, feel free to tip. If you don't like it, send it to some enemies. Watch the clips. If you can't afford the dollar to watch the whole special, just watch the clips.
Okay. And you are also a teacher?
I don't call myself a teacher. I assist people when they're trying to act.
Got it.
For lack of a better term, teach a few private students, and I teach for a couple of companies. And I have a couple of private students that I work with for stand-up. I have a kid who is, I think Abai is 15 or 16 now. And he is probably the hungriest, fastest growing comedian I've ever seen. You give him a note and immediately he is able to apply it. And in this environment, I did some workshops for the theater that I do a show at the Moore Park, at what's it called, High Street Arts Center in Moore Park. And we were doing a show every other month. And I worked with him for a few months and put him on stage. And he was really funny. And then when the pandemic happened, they were trying to figure out summer curriculum for their summer camp, because that was like the biggest fundraising part of their year, is to have the summer camp, because they ended up putting on a couple of shows and they couldn't do that because of the pandemic. So they were trying to figure out ways to engage the kids and still make a little dough. And so we did a comedy workshop for kids, and Abai is the only one that came back to each session of the workshop. And I give them a way to start building an act. And so each session, he started a new act, a new routine. And now he has probably about 45 minutes of squeaky clean material. And I'm talking about a hard 40 of material with just me watching him without sustained laughter. So he's got at least 45 minutes of material that he can put on stage. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where he goes when this is all over, because he's hungry. His name is Yoganathan.
How do you spell that?
Abhay, Abhay, Yoganathan, Yoganothan.
Wonderful. I'm going to look forward to seeing some of his videos, and I'm going to watch your clips and tips. And I'm going to put out on this video post all your links, your website that has all your links and your dry bar special. And
thank you.
Yes. And you just let me know anytime you want to come on and promote anybody or anything you're up to, if you will. You're welcome to come back every month, Mark.
Thank you so much. I see you have a picture of my buddy Sinbad in the background back there.
We're praying for Sinbad to reach.
Yeah. Everybody, please, send some prayers up for Sinbad. He's one of the most genuine guys I've ever worked with. It's an honor to have shared a stage with him.
Yes, he told me I could have 2 minutes to interview him, and he stayed for 41 minutes and 54 seconds. And I'll never forget it.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
He is a good dude. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to re-interview you on good equipment. And I'll have this up and running. And I'm trying to figure out how I can make it go on YouTube and Spotify myself without paying somebody to do it. So if you go to 7-Eleven next week and see it up on video number 2, don't be surprised where I put it. I'll get to it.
YouTube should be pretty easy. YouTube is not hard to access and set up your own account. So that should be pretty easy. In fact, you can watch a YouTube video to figure out how to do it.
Wow, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
YouTube video. Every time I've ever done an interview, I've gone live to Facebook. And then I realized you could go straight to YouTube. And I'm like, why didn't somebody tell me?
Yeah.
All righty. Well, I'll get to it. I'll do my homework and get it there. But in the meantime, it'll be on Facebook Live.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Mark Christopher Lawrence, everybody. Follow him. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless.